Hi, welcome to the Web3 Enabler Real World Blockchain podcast. I'm here with Alexander Smart, legal expert here at Web3 Enabler. Hi, Alex.
Hi Zoe, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing well. And happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
To you too.
Um, Thank you. So, why is it so important for legal experts from around the world to gather to discuss crypto law and compliance matters?
I think the biggest reason is that this is crypto is an area that touches on so many areas of law and can have an impact on them. And it's clear from what regulators and lawmakers have done so far that they're getting better, but they still don't know what to do with all of it, not what to make of it all yet. And so I think that's one of the reasons it's so important for people who have expertise in crypto and law, especially, to speak up and to speak out because a lot of what's being proposed doesn't make sense if you have a technical idea of under what's going on for and then there's also like a cultural aspect to where crypto has been and where crypto started that has created some friction and I think will continue to create friction um, and we've got to figure out ways to get past and through that. So.
Well said. Well said. So, yeah, so many areas of compliance and security within emerging tech um, that applies to really all of them. And another recurring theme, just general advice for entrepreneurs in the crypto space on how to keep lawyers in the loop as they, move fast and break things, as they say.
Yeah,
What kind of questions should they even be asking, and when should they be asking those questions just to start the conversation?
I mean, I think that's a really good question, and I think one piece that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially first time entrepreneurs, won't have is like if you haven't hired an attorney before, you got to start there. Figuring out how to hire an attorney is its own skill set, right? And so I will get to your question, but let me take a second to detour on this because I think this is something that's useful for people. What you need primarily in an attorney is someone you trust. Like, so you should talk to a few attorneys. You should go in with some questions. But the best attorney isn't necessarily the one who is the deepest expert in your area in your field, although they might be. It really depends. You need someone that you and your team can trust to get the advice you need. And like a big part of being an attorney is not knowing the answers to everything, but it's knowing where to look and knowing when you need to look and uh, and what to look for. So so step one is find an attorney you trust. So once you've gotten that sorted out, when should you talk to them? And sooner is always better. Like um, the I, I know I've told you this in the past, Zoe, but I practiced criminal defense for a while, right? And one of the things that was I would always tell my clients, and it remains true outside of the criminal defense realm, is that like uh, as an attorney, I can make almost any set of facts that I am aware of. I can spin that. I can make it look better or I make it understandable. What is really hard to do is to have what I think are the facts that I've prepared for and then have to deal with the fact that you didn't tell me because you didn't want me to know it. You were embarrassed about it. You didn't think it was important. You held it back. Um, and now I have to revamp the story to accommodate this new fact that I didn't have a heads up about. And so sooner is better. Like the more you can have your attorney involved and engaged and know what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it, the better. And this goes back to the hiring question, right? Like attorneys have a reputation as being the guys who go to say no. Just like accountants kind of have that reputation. Sometimes you have to ask permission and they tell you no. Um, Good business attorneys aren't going to be like that. They want to help you achieve your goals if possible, and to do it in the best and most legal and efficient way you can, you know? So, like, that's something you have to interview for. But once you get over that hurdle, you need your legal counsel to be integral to how you come about with your strategy and your approach to that. Because, um, again, they can do a great job helping you with facts they're aware of, but it's a lot harder to deal with facts they don't know about.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, there's really no workaround for not having the right information in front of you.
Yeah, like if I have, you can give me pretty bad facts and I can tell a story about why that makes sense from where you came from or where what things happened or how the things played out. But surprise bad facts are a lot harder to deal with because you've already built this narrative structure and you have to revamp it or not. And it's difficult to do on the fly. So they need to know what you're doing, what you're thinking of doing, and that is the best time to like bring them in is and I get like cost can be an issue, right? Like people are worried about how much they're going to have to pay for their attorney, but some of these you may pay a little bit up front to save a lot of money down
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And ultimately, that's about trust and accountability among
the road.
all else.
Yeah, exactly. Like you want someone who is going to be have a vested interest in your success, who's going to want you to succeed and want you to get where you need to go. um, and you need to trust that they will be able to do their job to help you get there in the best way possible, you know. Uh, so being involved in those conversations is hugely important and hugely helpful.
Well said. Well said.
And I think too, it's difficult. It's still difficult lawyering in the crypto space in a lot of ways because there is still a huge amount of uncertainty, um, and that is starting to be a bit unique. Like all new industries have a period of this, right, where the norms haven't adjusted. But the fact that it's continuing at this point as long as it has is a little bit surprising to me. I would have expected us to have a bit more clarity than we do at this point, given how much money has gone into the space, um, how much effort has gone into it, how much growth and building there has been undertaken, and so it's still a bit surprising that our regulators are as behind on this as I think they still are. But but there is progress, and things are moving slowly but surely in the right direction. I think towards more certainty and towards a more agreed upon set of standards across, both within and across countries.
Yeah. And yeah, so going off of that, certain crypto legal and compliance frameworks have been slow to implement since they're quite complex. So for example, California delayed implementation of the crypto money translator transmitter license until July 2026. So can you explain some of these complexities at the state, national, and international levels, maybe with a couple examples?
I can try. No, I mean the I think that so the California regulation is interesting because um, it is an attempt to be more comprehensive and to cover more of the spread of what's needed to happen, and I think it's a good as a draft, um, but I also think that um, it is incomplete. And I mean, one of the things that crypto has done is allowed companies um, to grow really quickly because they get access to a lot more of a larger financial market quicker. Um, and that comes with good and bad. That's one of the big reasons that it's been so tricky is that like by not going traditional public offering route that companies have gone in the past, regulators aren't sure what to do. They want to protect people from frauds, and crypto has earned itself a reputation as a problem in that area over time. And at the same time, like mm, most crypto projects are not frauds, right? Most crypto projects are undertaken in good faith. They're attempts to build a business. It's hard to build a business. Most startups fail. It is really difficult. And so finding a way to navigate these things of like, we want to allow companies these advantages that crypto does provide them of opportunities for fundraising or be able to fundraise globally, fundraise on a community with a community, um, and still protect investors. And because the balance there is um, early stage projects have a hard time with coming up with the capital that's needed to do regulatory compliance. It's expensive. And if you are just bootstrapping and you don't have, you haven't fundraised a huge amount or you whatever, it's very, very difficult to like that money as an entrepreneur, you want to be pouring into product and figuring out product market fit and how to grow a company, not into legal fees off the bat and into compliance fees off the bat. And the securities laws as they exist are designed for mature, at least certainly more mature companies that have the budgets and have the access to be able to like have a full legal department and a compliance department whose jobs are to make sure that they comply with all the paperwork and do all the permitting, licensing, whatever is required. And by crypto kind of short circuiting that system and speeding up the possibility of getting capital, like the successful fundraising companies should find themselves in a place where they can afford to do that, but not everybody does. And so, how do you find when it's so much easier to raise capital through crypto? Like, what's the happy medium between allowing a project to get access to this funding opportunity, but also protecting the investors? And how do you manage the paperwork so the company isn't crushed by the regulatory burden, but you still have enough information to actually be able to provide protection to investors to keep them safe from fraud? And that's the struggle. Like, that's what people are having such a hard time with. Well, there's other things too, but that's one of the biggest issues, I think, is like traditionally you had to grow your company to a large enough scale to make it make sense to do an initial public offering. And that was a big, like big companies do that. And crypto can do that. You can do that much more like, a guy in his basement can launch a coin. And if it catches the wave, right, like it can be a big thing. Um, and, some of that early enthusiasm, exuberance, I think would be the term that goes along with some of that, has faded a bit, but it still is this capacity to create a community and a network that then funds the project through its own users. And that's one of the big appealing things about crypto. And so I think it is a legitimately hard balancing act that regulators are trying to manage, to provide protections, but not smother these baby businesses as they're trying to grow. And there's not really a playbook because before there just wasn't like there wasn't a way to get access to the market if you weren't on the New York Stock Exchange and you had to buy a seat. You know what I mean? And if you couldn't come up with the money for that, don't do it. Like there were just so many more like gatekeepers that could really keep people out, and crypto gets rid of a lot of that gatekeeping, for better and for worse. So that's one of the big issues. Another thing is that I think, this is trivial, but I think it illustrates kind of the nature of some of the challenges that are faced in doing this. Um, when you do an international contract, you have to pick a currency, right? Um, and traditionally, when you pick a currency, you say which currency. And if you're worried about currency volatility, then you set a time for the currency to be priced at for your contract. And traditionally, it was something like the closing bell, like the closing bell of trading on the New York Stock Exchange or on the whatever exchange you're on, the Forex, whatever. Like, and that was the time. These things were only traded in one place. When trading stopped, that was the price for the day. Like, that was the end of it. Now, like, we've started moving away from that for a long time now. We've done electronic trading for years now, but crypto takes that to a whole other level because how do you price these things, right? Like, at what time do you pick? Like, I've had a bunch of different contracts where you know it's with parties around the world. Everybody has their own preferences. They have what they want, but there's not like an established time to price a token. And given the volatility of a lot of tokens, that matters. Like, I mean, our mutual knowledge systems had one contract swing 40% on us. And we were waiting for a payment, but we didn't know it was coming. They didn't tell us that they were sending it. Payment hit our wallet on Friday. We didn't get out of the position on Tuesday, and we lost $50,000 of payment because the token took a bit of a dive over the weekend. And by the time we were aware that we had it, the token had gone down so much that, I mean, it was $120,000. It was supposed to be $120,000 payment. At the time they paid it, it was worth that. By the time we got it, it was worth 80. And, you know, that's a real challenge for a small company. Um, and there's all sorts of these things that are vestigial and things that we've handled with convention and with practices that have evolved over a long time because of how markets were required to work when everything had to happen in person and not on a 24-hour global clock. But now we're not in that world. And crypto gets caught up in a lot of these changes that are happening outside of the industry as well, but it kind of heightens it because, like, tokens can be currencies and, like, it can be a cryptocurrency. And then like, the dollar, it makes sense. If you're going to price the dollar, you're going to price that, like, at a closing time of some market in the United States, most likely, unless there's some other reason not to, right? Well, where are you going to do that for Bitcoin? Like, it doesn't even, there's not even a place to narrow down the time zones, right? Like, they're all even essentially. It doesn't, like, it doesn't, it's not native to a country. So there's not a native set of times that matter to it. And again, this is a side issue that's not really that deeply complex or anything, but it just shows you how many little norms and standards have been assisting with making these kind of regulations and rules make sense over time that just don't apply anymore. And because they don't apply, it puts regulators in a place where they're having to, like, start from scratch in a lot of ways, which is just, I mean, it's much easier to revise something that exists already than it is to face that blank page and start from a tabula rasa. So I think that's a big piece of this. And, like, DAOs are another factor there, right? The way decentralized autonomous organizations function, one, there are a lot of ways they function. There isn't a set model that applies to all of them. And it's a new idea. It's a new way of organizing activity. And it's been a long time since we had a new way of organizing activity. Like, I mean, the corporation is hundreds of years old now. We've got LLCs, but, like, those are, like, simplify some of the hard things about a corporation. They're not, like, wholly new. And a DAO is very different from that. And so, like, part of this is just prudent on the part of the regulators. Like, it's clear that there's a lot of innovation going on in this space. There's a lot of new ideas. There's a lot of experimenting going on. And if they rush in with a a tight set of rules really quickly, then they're going to cut that off and not allow things to evolve in the way that they may need to, because it takes a while to figure out a new legal innovation like this. It really does take a while to figure out how to make that make sense and what rules can work for it and what rules won't. And so there is a need to be a little slow because you want to see what shakes out. Like as you go along, you'll find, oh, these, you know, it'll become more and more apparent that there are, I mean, I'm confident that there will be standardizations that are possible. Things that we can say with a large degree of confidence, 90% of the time, if this is true, then you're operating in a great way or in a good way. And if these things are true, you've got some problems. And, a lot of this boils down to like honesty, transparency, like big values, but figuring out exactly how to apply them in a new environment can be a real challenge.
Well said. Yeah, so many variables, so much happening, so exciting.
Yeah.
Definitely needs that unique set of expertise and agility as you touched upon.
And it's important that we have like lawyers who are informed on the technology in the conversation and technologists who are informed on the law in the conversation. Um, because that is the only way we can get laws that will actually make sense. If we don't do that, we're going to end up with attempts to do that, but it's going to end up. Um, I mean, the most likely outcome is that there will be capture by the heavy hitters, the players who have made it the furthest along, and that they will then write the rules to make it harder for the other people to make it in the system. That's what traditionally happens, and I don't know that there's a way for us to dodge that. Frankly, um, that's kind of the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. But if we're going to have any chance to stop that, if we're going to have a chance to have regulations that don't just tip the deck in favor of the incumbent players, we need to be actively uh, interacting with lawmakers, educating them, talking to the different regulators, explaining technology, explaining what makes sense from the legal frameworks with this technology or what doesn't make sense, and helping them to craft things that will be fair and that will make a level playing field for all the companies, whether they're already successful or if they're just trying to get off the ground.
Well said. Yeah, I mean, and the emphasis on level playing field is just such an ethical distinction from the corporate world. Um, so I imagine that, ethics and belief systems are also a part of why a lawyer would become an expert in this space and want to help out.
Yeah.
So thank you for that because that's we need that. We need that as entrepreneurs, as people will, looking to build specifically decentralized systems and decentralized economies
Mm-hmm.
and opportunity for financial inclusion that comes with that. We really need that. We really need that allocated energy and expertise and it's hard to find. So thank you
Yeah.
again for that.
Yeah. And like I think that, you know, I'm a big believer in markets. I think markets are great. They can be taken advantage of. You need a regulator who pays attention and who is focused on keeping the playing field level and not, picking winners and losers. Picking winners and losers is something that the market is supposed to do itself, not the regulator. And um, and we're in a world with these technologies where one of the things that I think is challenging um, is that decentralized technologies um, are we've not dealt in a really extensive way with them, as in the sense that it's so much easier to build something decentralized now than it has been at a lot of points in the past. And like that comes with a whole new set of challenges, like because things used to be centralized, almost even largely decentralized things had to be centralized in some way, right? Like a market, a medieval market is decentralized in the sense that it's a whole bunch of independent actors who are showing up on market day to sell whatever, right? But they show up in the same place. You know where they're going to be because they tell you where they're going to be. They're all there. But now we can create a global market that can operate 24 hours and it only exists in cyberspace. It only exists on the internet. Um, and the fact that those kinds of centralization that have historically been baked in, you couldn't get around all of that, you know? Like you were people, you had to interact with other people, you had to be in a place to do that. And our law is still kind of trying to catch up with some of that. Like you have a DAO that has one member in each country around the world, like of 600 different, 200 different countries. For example, like where is it headquartered? Where does it exist? Like law cares a lot about where something exists because that's the question of who can hold this thing accountable. Um, and unless you can answer that question definitively, the law has a very hard time addressing it. So and we need to. That's I think one of the things that's so difficult about this as well is that requires countries to come up with frameworks that make sense for everybody. And we've historically been very bad at that. Each country wants to make their own laws and they don't want to pay that much attention unless they have to. And generally that has to do with their military or their money. Those are the two places where they're willing to compromise on that sort of stuff. Outside of that, they just want to do it their own way. And everybody does. And so we're having to like, and that slows the whole process. It takes an already slow process of like, oh, technical innovation is moving so quickly, but now it adds, and we have to see what the Europeans are doing, and what are the Chinese going to do, and what are the Japanese going to do, and what is the U.S. going to do, and what is California or New York within the U.S. going to do. We've got all of these different polities all trying to wrestle with these things at the same time and come to a set of rules that actually don't break everything and work more or less across the board. And there's going to be holdouts or whatever, but like um, we want to try to find some compromise ground, and it's it's a thorny problem.
Oh yeah, well said. Very well said. It's so much variation, so much room for
Yeah,
disagreement and misaligned incentives where that comes from, but being able to find the best possible solution, as you said. Um, it's certainly different than the very technical aspects of consensus, which are quite logical.
right.
Um, so yeah, again, interesting conversations with respect to the technologies and policies
Yeah,
behind decentralized systems. And I'm really glad, shared passion is just so interested. And I really look forward to continuing to work with you, of course,
yeah.
in helping more blockchain companies moving forward. It's an exciting time. I'm glad to be part of it.
It is. It very much is. And there's so much like while there's been so much frustration, and I think it is a really exciting time as the technologies are maturing and the markets are maturing and the regulators are starting to understand things. I think it's going to be. I think the beginning of blockchain is really just starting to be like we're just starting to see what is going to happen in the markets with this technology. So
Yes. Very exciting time. So
absolutely.
stay tuned, viewers.
Yep.
More to come. Great having you, Alex.
A great chatting, Zoe. Thank you.